In 1965, America was forced into the Vietnam conflict to fight against the march of communism and ensure the freedom of the South Vietnamese people.
Although it was not popular at the time, the government instituted a draft, and all eligible men aged 18 to 35 were required to register.
They had passed a law years ago saying if they didn't have enough people that were signing up for the military, that they could take people, send them a notice, and take them based on your social security number. They'd pull your number and send you a notice saying you were going to be required to serve 6 years in the military.
Each draftee was sent to a 6-week boot camp to prepare them for the extreme environment they would be facing.
That was basic training, learning how to shoot a rifle and march and run and do all that kind of stuff. After basic training, I went to Fort Polk, Louisiana for jungle training before I was sent over to Vietnam.
I had my basic training at Parris Island, South Carolina, and that's where once you get on the island, they had alligators and different things all around, and had different types of poisonous snakes and everything. So if you wanted to skip and run from the island to get away, you would have to go through all those things. So it was best to stay there. And Parris Island, maybe you all might not have heard of Parris Island, but Parris Island is one of the hardest training places for boot camp. And but I enjoyed it because I was the most outstanding man in my platoon. So I got an award for the most outstanding man. I won the dress blues. Y'all might know the Marine Corps wear dress blues. Well, I got mine free.
In the late 1960s, over 500,000 troops were sent to fight in this conflict. J.E. Palmer and Steve McCullough were a part of this troop surge.
I enlisted.
No, I was drafted. The day I turned 21, I got my notice in the mail.
Vietnam was not at all what they expected.
It was, when flying in, it looked so beautiful. And everything was so green because I went there in August. But then after being there just for a while, you start seeing the bombs and the fire, napalm and different things. So it didn't seem to look so beautiful then. And then when you got out there in the actual place, you was the rice paddies and everything was wet and it was messy. So it didn't look so good on ground like it was in the sky.
A soldier's life can be miserable at times.
Half the year it was muddy and awful, and the other half the year it was dry and dusty and like snow on the ground. There was so much dust. And we're always out in what we call the field, traveling everywhere. So we'd set up and just try and make whatever we could to, we'd sleep on the sandbags that we built and set up. And in some cases we try, and if it was raining or something, we had a poncho, which is kind of like a big old raincoat you could make into a tent. Most of the time we actually got one hot meal a day, because wherever we stopped and set up, they would bring out on some big helicopters some hot meals and leave them there for us.
Soldiers could not always easily identify their enemies.
The closest I got to them was when I got shot. And I got shot twice. I got shot in my leg here, and then we was walking, we got ambushed. And so I fell down after I got shot, and then I'm laying down, and I get shot in the thigh. And then I went face to face. I crawled up on the enemy. I was thinking that we were getting, thought I got shot by my own Marines because we could hear them in the bushes. And we told them, say, we're Marines, we're Marines. And when I got shot here, but it came from behind me up in the hills, and where it shot me through here. And I didn't know that. And when I get shot here, I'm thinking I'm getting shot from my left side because we could talk to them, told them we was coming up behind them. And then when I'm laying on the ground, I get shot in the thigh, and I'm still thinking these Marines can't hear us. And so that's why I crawled back to the corpsman, and I said, I'm going to crawl and get help because some people are getting killed out behind us on the other side in my squad. And I crawl up the hill, and I crawl up in front of the two enemies that was looking at me. And they were looking at me, and I had to dive my head back down the hill. And that's when I realized that they were shooting at us. And I started telling everybody, we got those that's dug in up here shooting at us.
Soldiers had many responsibilities in wartime.
Fill sandbags, dig holes, travel around the country looking for the enemy when we were on these vehicles. Sandbags was something it's kind of like sandbags you see now where they build a wall to protect the water from flooding in somewhere. Well, we did the same things, only we built a wall around so enemy couldn't fire bullets in at us. It would block the bullets and stuff. And if a bomb or something landed nearby, it would also block that. I heard I had some electronics background. They put me in this other unit that had a small radar unit that you could set up on the perimeter of where we were, and it was supposed to pick up people. Well, it could pick up people walking to some degree, and you'd scan around trying to see if there was somebody out there at night walking around, and then notify somebody that, hey, we picked something up out there. It might be some enemy or whatever. Personnel carriers could get stuck in the mud, and then they'd have to have another big vehicle come out, tracked vehicle come out and try and pull it out.
This was the first televised war, so every night on the evening news, the war raged in people's living rooms. Anti-war sentiment was increased by the images and news coverages shown on TV.
Even though there were protests against America's involvement in the conflict, friends and family were supportive of their loved ones, while their many soldiers received packages from home containing items they held dear.
But I always, a lot of letters going back and forth. Nowadays, I guess they just call on the phone, but back then you had to write a letter and somebody had to answer it and send one back, and it would take at least a few weeks before you'd hear anything back from maybe some questions you asked them.
In contrast to the constant conflict, some soldiers were fortunate enough to be entertained by USO celebrities.
They voted for me to be the one to go see the Bob Hope show, and during that time it was Ann Margaret and that was with them. And so I got a chance to go to the name, and that was like a little vacation to go see Ann Margaret. And I said, wow, see Ann Margaret and Bob Hope show.
The soldiers were affected both physically and mentally by their wartime experiences. Post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD, however, wasn't acknowledged during this time.
I probably only sleep till 4 o'clock in the morning, no matter what time I go to bed. And I don't know if that's got something to do with it or not, but I guess I'm restless too, sleeping.
A treaty was signed in 1973 to end the war, but our Vietnam veterans came back home unappreciated for their sacrifices.
So many people looked on us as, why would you do this? I was doing it for the country.
Well, there wasn't any big reception or anything anyway when I got back. Pretty much ignored, other than the family.
It took over a decade after the war ended to honor our Vietnam veterans. A memorial in Washington, D.C. called the Vietnam Wall contains the names of 58,200 soldiers who were killed in action or missing in action.
One of my best friends, I let him go up front, and he was the one that was killed. And I was wounded, and a lot of the people in my squad was killed. And then even after they, and I won't get into the other stuff for now, but that was one of my friends. His name was James Cole, and he's up on the wall in D.C. I got a chance to see his name there.
One of the guys in the same unit I was in was hit and injured pretty severely. I heard that he had passed away. When I was down to Washington to the Vietnam Memorial, I looked for his name on there and never did find it, so I don't know if he did pass away or not. And another one of the people in our particular unit that I was in was hit by our own artillery that landed nearby, and the shrapnel, the pieces from that artillery hit him instead of, it was not very good aim on our artillery, so it hit too close to where we were.
The lessons of the Vietnam conflict still echo today.